Okay, actually, before we open the meeting, new Richard, is there anything you'd like to tell us about yourself, your expectations for this commission? Sorry to put you on the spot.
I'm I, I'm newly retired from a 30-year career as in public service at the District of North Vancouver,
Ah,
and my qualification or my professional status as architect,
good.
and I was uh, sort of involved in review of the larger buildings at
Okay,
the
that's
district.
interesting.
Yeah, and um, input into
Okay.
matters. Yeah.
Well, we could always use the expertise, and that reminds me, we were also missing Martin, our other architect. But so I will ask the other members of the commission just to give one sentence, very briefly, who they are to help Richard understand. Um, so going from the top of my screen, that would be Sarah first.
Hi, I work for the municipality. I am the communications coordinator, and I also act as clerk to a number of the committees.
Good. And I'm next on my screen. I'm a retired lawyer and the second Australian on this commission. Daniel.
Breaking the streak, I am not Australian, but I'm Daniel. I'm the manager of planning and development with the municipality.
Okay. Betty.
Betty Morton. I'm retired, been on island for about 15 years. I do have some planning background, but it's ancient. I did lots of other things afterwards.
Okay. Kirsty.
I've been retired for 15 years, long time. And I was in business, mostly marketing and planning. On the island all my life.
Okay. Richard Underdown.
Yeah, hi, Richard. I'm the other Richard on the APC. I've been on Bowen 32 years, raised my family here, business background. Welcome.
Good. And Alex, sorry, you just happened to be last.
Oh, that's quite all right. My name is Alex Jurgensen, and I am the council liaison to this committee. So I'm just here as a resource between this commission and council, and really pleased to have you join us, Richard.
Thank you.
Good to see everybody.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, Sarah, we can open the meeting now. And the first item is approval of the agenda.
Did you want to forward it to?
Sorry. What did I want to do?
Did you want to carry it unanimously? Did you want to?
Oh, the approval of agenda?
Mhm.
Yeah, I would like somebody to make a motion. Or if they, that's Kirsty, followed by Betty. All in favor? Good. That looks unanimous. Adoption of the minutes of the February 19th, 2025 meeting. Comments? Or is that a motion, Richard?
Yeah, motion to approve.
Okay, seconder. Kirsty, all in favor? That's unanimous as well. Yeah, I take it there's no member of the public present, right, sir? Okay. One of these days, somebody's going to show up and surprise us. Okay, number 4, council referral. I'm guessing this is for you, Daniel.
Yes, I will just share my screen and give you a presentation here. Okay, so topic tonight for the referral is a draft policy, which is a policy for the process for disposal of municipal land for affordable housing. Where am I going to go? There. All right. So by way of background, this is an initiative that came from our Housing Accelerator Fund grant, which is a federal grant. And it's about fast tracking the supply of housing units over the next 3 years. And through this agreement, the federal government will provide up to 1.6 million in funding with a goal to eliminate barrier to building housing based on the completion of the approved housing action plan. I will say as an aside too, we recently had an agreement with the federal government in March. I think it was announced that they will provide an additional $160,000 in funding to complete work on our sewer system. So this grant continues to grow.
Oh, good.
All right, but so the approved action plan at the time that I brought this to council had 6 initiatives in it. So reducing parking standards for affordable housing, we've completed that project. To implement development cost charges, we have hired a consultant who is helping us with a development cost charge bylaw for our sewer and water systems. Waiving public hearings for affordable housing, we've completed that project. E-permitting for business or for building permits is underway. Number 5 is process to partner on affordable housing. And so under that initiative, we are developing a partnership agreement with Birch. And then this is number 6, create a process for disposal of city-owned assets for the development of affordable housing. And then I'll say that, yeah, this action plan has been revised now to include number 7, which is about essentially I&I, which is inflow and infiltration in the Snug Cove sewer system, with the idea that completing that work could open up capacity in the system to allow more housing. All right, so number 6, the policy for this process. The policy is to establish a process that council can follow when making a decision to dispose of land. And so highlighting here that the policy is not about any one decision at this point. It's about sort of just laying out a process for council. So if council thinks like, oh, we think we may have extra land that could be available for housing or other purposes, what's the process that we should use in trying to decide to dispose of land or not? So in developing this policy, one of the things we look at is our OCP policies. So we have a couple policies about affordable housing on lands, and in particular the surplus lands or community lands. So policy 169 says that the municipality will address the affordable housing issue when considering the preferred use and development of the surplus lands or the community lands acquired from Metro Vancouver. And policy 368 is about the municipality providing service land owned by the municipality to the Bowen Island Housing Corporation or an affordable housing provider, subject to public expression of interest, amount of land of 0.5 hectares, and talking about sewer or other servicing. Where am I going? All right, so the draft policy is in your agenda, but it lays out essentially 6-7 steps of what the process would go through. So it's about identifying the land for potential disposal, about the preliminary assessment of that land, about community consultation that could be undertaken, about council review and a decision, about appraisal and valuation of the land, the method of the disposal for it, and then documentation and reporting of that decision. I'm going to stop sharing there, and I don't know if I'm better sharing the actual document itself. Yeah, so in the agenda, there's a version that's called the track changes version that actually shows up the agenda right below the recommendation. And that is essentially the policy that was presented to council with some of the changes from that council discussion. And maybe I'll just go to that. I'll go to that page to show you. Here. So some of the feedback from council at the initial, when I presented it, was wanting to be clear that it essentially changing the word sale to disposal throughout the document, so that we're not talking, if at the start we're talking about disposal of land, so it can be the sale, the lease, the exchange, the transfer of municipal land. So making sure it's consistent with the disposal. Adding under this, so going through procedures for decision making. So it's about identifying land for potential sale. So reviewing municipal land to identify what's not required for municipal purpose and some that may be suited for residential development to support Bowen's housing need. And then the second way is requests for disposal. So this has happened in my time here and probably will continue to happen. People may just come to the municipality and say, we see you have land, we would like to buy it. And so what does council do at that point? talking about preliminary assessment, so outlining report for council, what to consider in bringing a report to council. One of the changes council had wanted to see was implications of debt financing associated with the land purchase. So this is relevant for the community lands where when we purchased the land for Metro Vancouver, the municipality took out, essentially borrowed the money to buy it. And so council wanted to make sure that when a decision is made, that council sort of was aware of, is there outstanding debt associated with purchasing the land in the first place? Community consultation is short. It just says where appropriate, municipality will engage the public to gather input on potential disposal. Council review, so then public notice will be provided before any land disposal decision. It must be approved by a formal resolution of council. Council may impose conditions on that land disposal. The policy had for that we will obtain independent appraisal to determine fair market value of the property. In the council discussion, council was looking for essentially an alternate. So it says what for strategic disposals or partnerships, such as to nonprofits or developers of affordable housing, council may use other methods to obtain a value of the property, such as the most recent valuation assigned by BC Assessment. And I think this is essentially looking at in cases where the municipality is looking to essentially donate the land for an affordable housing project, is saying maybe we don't need to do an independent appraisal for the fair market value for the property, but we're happy taking the assessed value of the property to sort of value that that provision of land. It just outlines the land may be disposed of through a public tender. It can be disposed of through direct negotiation. And it says here for strategic disposals or partnerships, such as nonprofits or developers of affordable housing, or a land exchange. Land exchange comes up more often if people essentially have like an undeveloped road next to them. That's when I've seen it come up, and they say, well, I would like some of it and I can exchange some of my land. And then just number 7 about the documentation and reporting, that we are reporting it as a municipal record. So that's my talking through the policy, and then I would love to open it up for any questions or comments, and maybe I'll stop sharing so we can see each other.
Okay, does anyone have any questions or comments for Daniel?
Are we, question from Kirsty, are we now focused on selling all of the land for affordable housing? I thought we were trying to pay off our debts and have some money. Like, was there a change that I totally missed? That this is all, it seems to be totally focused on affordable housing.
I think probably like council may be better able to answer like the focus of it. I mean, I know council has talked to council's had presentations from Birch and Tomo about a portion of lot 1. Yeah, like the portion that's next to the school, that portion of land, and they've presented to council in terms of what could be developed on that site in terms of affordable housing. But I think like the intent of the policy is more just that it's guiding council's decision in coming to dispose of the land. It has a focus on housing, but in part because that's what CMHC through the grant process wants to see, is that we're clear in the policy that there's a consideration, that it includes consideration for affordable housing.
Yeah, fair enough. It's just that it so describes affordable housing and partnerships and all that kind of stuff. Like it sort of seems to get away from making money. We got it. Right. We have a big debt, and to me, it's a bit skewed.
Okay.
I saw Betty had her hand up next.
Yeah, I just want to clarify. I thought I saw higher up in that document, and then I didn't down below, but is there an option of disposing in terms of a long-term lease where the municipality ultimately still holds the title? It's sort of like False Creek in Vancouver, for example.
It does. So when it defines disposal, it says the sale, lease, exchange, or transfer. So it is.
But it doesn't say in that last part you showed us.
Okay. Let me double check. Let me see what's there.
Okay, Richard?
And just to pick up on that same point, Betty, I
Hmm.
was wondering the same thing. Just um, is there guidance for council to determine whether or not land is offered on a lease versus being given to a non-profit housing? How is that determination made?
Um, yeah, I think that's a good question. Like I know in my time here, we've done different methods. So, for example, where the new apartment buildings are below the new community center, the land was sold to like through a real estate transaction for somebody to develop housing on, versus behind the health center, the municipality is going to enter into a lease with Lookout to build affordable housing project. And obviously the land for the health center was sold to the health center.
So what are the
Yeah.
guiding principles
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
determining?
Yeah. I mean, maybe the policy could speak to that
Yeah,
in more
that
detail.
sounds like one of our recommendations.
Yeah.
Okay. Richard, other Richard. I don't know.
Other Richard D. Yeah.
New Richard.
Yeah, I was trying to. I don't know the background to the surplus lands acquired from Metro. Whether we had to pay for them or whether they were just given to us, and then related to that, outstanding debts associated with disposal of the land. So does that mean we still owe money on the land and then we dispose it, or are there other debts?
Yeah, typically like the surplus lands or the community lands were purchased for $2 million for the set of, what were then the community or the surplus lands. Yeah, and there is, well, yeah, it was converted into a long-term borrowing at some point recently, in my time here at least. For a while, we held it as like a interest-only payments. I think under the expectation that we were shortly going to sell land and then pay it off before locking it in. And then at some point, we instead were obligated to lock it into a long-term borrowing.
Okay. Yes,
Yeah.
Richard again.
On another matter, I mean, I think I think two things we could avoid. We could avoid sort of community backlash, and or not two things to avoid, but we could avoid community backlash, and we could make using the land by nonprofit developers more attractive if we were able to do a little bit of feasibility or planning on those sites. If we say, well, here's a 20 hectare piece of land that we're proposing to use for nonprofit housing. Once you put in the roads, it's way less area, and once you assign parks, it's even less area. So a realistic picture of what that 20 hectare piece of land that's going to be used for housing looks like would have, it would show parks, it would show roads, it would show just the basic bones of that. And I think on the feasibility side, I mean, we talked about sewage, but water is equally important. I mean, in the cove, I guess we have cove water, and that should suffice for sprinkler systems and so on. But if we're going to look in areas that don't have cove water, then water is going to be a serious consideration as well as sewage.
Okay. Do you have any answer to that, Daniel, or?
No, I mean, I
Well,
took
the answer,
notes.
I think the
I
answer
just-
is to add feasibility somewhere into the
Yeah.
I've lost the
I think in
Okay.
that number 2 where it says preliminary assessment is
Yeah.
adding like servicing and feasibility or
servicing
like
parks
yeah.
feasibility.
Okay. And I think that also may become one of our recommendations. Daniel, I don't know if you know the answer to this, but what is the ratio of the value of the land, say at BC assessment prices, to the debt? Is the debt well secured?
Right. I don't know that offhand.
Okay. That's my bias. I used to do a lot of insolvency. Okay. I think that I picked this phrase out of your, okay, I think council might want that just to know how it fits in the, it's fine to be helpful and give lands either by grant or below market value. But if it's going to cause the municipality to have difficulty repaying its loan, anyway, you see my point there.
Yeah.
Debt to asset ratio. Okay. And I picked this phrase out of your report, high community value or strategic significance of lands. Can you expand on that a bit? How would we determine that?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this ends up being like, well, that's for council to determine to some extent.
I expect they'd look for guidance from their chief planner, though.
Yeah. I mean, so the preliminary assessment says like historical or cultural significance. Maybe I should be mimicking the same language in terms of yeah.
I think what also may be relevant to that is the municipalities' requirements for land for who knows what, for service yards, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, wouldn't the current zoning for the land have some impact on its value? I mean, that'll determine whether or not it can be used for commercial purposes or housing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Isn't it all currently parks? So it'll have
No. I mean, in terms of the community lands, like lot 1 of the community lands was rezoned in 2017 or 2018. So some of the portions of it are specifically, well, one is specifically for residential development and one allows like a great mix of uses. Lot 3 being where the fire hall and the health center are. There's a portion of it that is remaining that has commercial or mixed use zoning. And where the community center is, the zoning for development continues roughly where now the current like overflow parking lot is for the community center. Whereas the area behind Bowen Court is zone park. So it's kind of a mix.
It is, yes. Okay. Any other comments or questions? My goodness, I've got a long list of.
Yeah, it's a pity we can't see because I don't have a good sense of what land we're talking about.
Okay.
So yeah.
I mean, I think I would say like this policy is not supposed to be about any one decision or any one piece of land, but more in general, like of the municipal lands that could be disposed of. What should the process be for council to make that decision?
Although, Daniel, you could quickly summarize. I know there's the land on Miller Road that's not being used for the health center or the fire hall, and then there's some land on across from the Bird and next to the service center and the gas station, right?
Yeah, do you want me to share my screen? I can just give you a little, like a
If you have a little
tour.
map, that would be perfect.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Can people see this okay? This is just our BOMAP website.
Okay.
Yeah.
See that.
Okay. So if we come in, so this area was all what was called Lot 3. So where the fire hall is, this is where the health center is that we sold to the health center. This is the future site of the Lookout Society housing development. This remains owned by the municipality, although it's largely currently allocated towards septic fields. So this is the septic for the health center, and the Lookout septic would kind of come down this area. This lot at the bottom is still owned by the municipality. That's right off Bowen Island Trunk Road. This is what's called Lot 2, so where the community center is, and then the zoning continues till about here, sort of the northern edge of the school property, comes across at an angle, and this area was originally zoned for townhouse development, but is currently being like cited for the extra parking for the community center and the septic field for the community center. And then if we scroll this way, this is what's called Lot 1. It's the so it's a very odd shape, but it starts almost right after you leave the school, continues almost all the way down to the Crippen Killarney parking lot. And the zoning for that, there's an area that's essentially this lower part that's zoned, we call Area 1. And it's zoned for like mixed use development. So it allows residential, it allows light industrial uses as well as commercial uses. This quadrant at this back side is zoned for 20 units of residential, like 20 units of housing. Whereas then this portion and this portion essentially are zoned for, they're zoned for like rural residential, so they're zoned for like not really for development. And then this little northern tip is zoned as well to be a single lot there. And the municipality also owns this lot that was at one point designated to be a site for a library, and then at one point for the water treatment plant, and now is not designated for a use at the moment. And so it's when you come out of Artisan Square, it's like the lot immediately across the street between there and the Children's Center. I think those are the main, like, without doing like a full inventory, those are probably the main municipal land that we own that isn't like either parks or is sort of active service use.
Okay.
I'll stop sharing there.
But that's very helpful, Dan. Okay, I have a list of things that we can turn into recommendations based on the discussion so far.
Do you want me to put
No, I thought
them
I'd just say them roughly, and then we can work out the language. So firstly, I do like the change in the draft from sale to disposal. I think that's very important. And I can imagine the council discussion that led to that. I think it's absolutely appropriate. So assuming we're in favor of this policy, I think some of the recommendations we'd make, based on what I heard from everybody, is take into account the current zoning of the parcel to be disposed of and the overall zoning. Provide guidance for the policy should provide guidance for offering land on a leasehold sale, or is grant possible? Grant basis. Okay. I don't think we should call the lands the surplus lands. They are not surplus to anything. They are the municipal lands, and surplus makes it sound that they're not needed. So we'd suggest that not. I know that on the island we use that language, but I think it would be good to work away from it. Request that applicants for land demonstrate how their project increases affordable housing or other community goals. And the consideration of amenities, access roads, parks, etc., that might be affected. And feasibility is the word Richard used, and I thought that should appear somewhere in their recommendation as well. And finally, my little thing about take into account the debt asset ratio. Okay, so should we try and craft some language about that? Did I get it all? That's my first question. Did anyone?
Did you mention, we talked about feasibility, but then almost specifically servicing?
Okay, we could add that. Service, okay.
And I think we should consider not just the debt that's outstanding, it's we need to recoup the money that we paid for it plus the interest, would be my
Okay, well,
suggestion.
maybe we can increase that to debt asset ratio and impact on tax, property tax.
Yeah, because if we paid for it all that time, don't want to sell it for zero.
Yeah. Okay, and Richard, you had your hand up there?
Yeah, I'm just wondering about community. Well, I think we have talked about community inputs here somewhere, but at what community consultation, but at what stage that happens? Because if
Okay, be clear
you know,
about
I
that.
guess if we
Yeah.
talk to a developer and then bring it to the community, and then the community really don't like it, then what's the God, what does it work? It sounds a mess, you know. It just
Okay, what was the phrase there? The community input or consult?
there
Okay.
there is number 3, community consultation.
Okay, but I think you're right. It's
But
not clear about when
it
that takes
seems to
place.
me, yeah, it's sort of, you know, whether that's something that happens early on as part of the OCP review or something like that, so that
Okay.
so that people aren't taken by surprise and then, you know, they're angry because they haven't, no one's ever said this is going to happen. And yeah.
Good point. And you know that old joke about Bowen, if you get 10 Boweners together, you have 15 opinions. Okay.
Well, I know about angry people, but
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a good point. We won't say avoid angry people, but that's the notion. Okay, Sarah, I think we might be ready for drafting.
Okay. Okay, can you see that?
Oh, you've been busy.
I missed one. I missed one in between these two. So it starts with that the Advisory Planning Commission provide the following recommendations on the draft policy process to dispose of municipal land for affordable housing.
Okay. And why don't I presume we should say that the Advisory Planning Commission recommends approval of the policy as drafted, subject to the following recommendations.
Sorry, just say that, read that back. Just my screen went.
Okay, that the just at the top there, that the APC recommends approval of the draft policy, et cetera, subject to the following and provides the following recommendations. You have to merge the first two paragraphs.
Yeah, I
there.
see.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Is that the way you want it to be?
that's what I have in mind. Okay,
Perfect.
and then I think we need to flesh out some of the recommendations. So the first one would be when disposing of land, council will take into account. And I assume, Daniel, this disposition will always be subject to council approval, right? It's not something
Yes.
staff would be. Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. The second one, I don't know that it'd be the policy that provides guidance,
Yeah.
right? So
So it's like include in the policy guidance.
As to whether or not land,
whether to offer the land for lease or sale.
lease, sale, or grant.
Grant. Yes.
We all have our pet projects. Yeah, and that would be, I don't know if we need to say in particular instances, I think that's true. Okay, the next one, should avoid the phrase surplus lands, as that implies that there is, I don't know what am I getting at here? Folks?
I don't have
just
to.
I think you don't need to explain it. I think just you can just end it there.
Yeah, just should avoid the phrase surplus lands. Okay.
You said because it implies that the land is not needed.
Yeah,
That's what
and needed
what
by
you said.
somebody, but okay. Why don't we say that that the policy should avoid the phrase surplus lands, as it implies that there may be land that the municipality does not need. Thanks, Richard. I like that. Okay. The next one would be council requests that applicants demonstrate how their project supports affordable housing or other community goals, values. I don't know. What do people think?
I think it's good because there's no cost to the taxpayer, and we don't have the resources, I don't think, to to show how a 20 hectare parcel will be divided up into roads and parks and where the water will come from and all those things. I don't think we have the resources. So
Okay.
I think it's good that we put it on applicants to
Yep,
to
that's
do
what
that.
we do in a normal planning application. Okay, we're on to the next one after goals. Take into account, oh, that's debt. Sorry, Sarah.
Yeah,
Debt.
there was one that I missed. I did miss one
Oh, okay.
in your list.
Oh, amenities,
Yeah, the other
right?
one was about feasibility and consideration to feasibility and servicing
That
of the
council
land.
that the policy to amenities and services, including roads, water, I guess sewer's covered, but why don't we add it anyway?
Yeah.
Access, parks.
Yeah, I think you might be able to add hydro because once we're charging electric cars,
Okay,
the
sure. Hydro, okay,
availability. I mean, if there's only a limited
yep,
hydro availability on the island, then you have to upgrade the entire hydro supply so that you can put in your electric car charging. Then
okay. So maybe what we should do is, okay, that's good. We could put a period after hydro and an before availability. But I think we need to say that the policy give consideration to sufficiency of amenities. Oh, sorry, it should be to amenities and sufficiency of services.
You're not.
No,
Wanna-
actually, no, leave it. Leave it. That's getting clumsy there.
Alex has
Sorry.
his hand up.
Through the chair.
Alex?
To the chair, we met with BC Hydro, not this past September, but the September prior, and they had indicated that at that time, Bowen was just over 50% of its electrical capacity, for the current, grid capacity. I just thought that might be relevant to the discussion.
Yeah, Actually, it's very reassuring. Thank you, Alex.
It's interesting, yeah.
Let's leave it in there anyway, because we have an answer to it, which is as 50%. Take into account the debt.
Oops.
I like that.
Michael,
Yeah.
just with your legal background, is there any difference between consideration and take into account? We're jumping back and forth. We're saying
No, in fact, my preference would be to be consistent. So why don't we say the policy? Okay, the policy on a disposal gives consideration to the municipal debt, to the ratio of the municipal debt to the value of the land. And any possible impact on property tax. And it could be a positive impact, one hopes.
yeah, it'd be nice.
So can I ask again, is this meant to cover all these lands are supposed to be affordable housing now? Because that's how it sounds.
No.
But anyway, when you say disposal of the lands for affordable housing,
Yeah.
it sounds like it's all going for affordable
Okay.
housing
Yeah, why don't we add that then, just Kirsty? Why don't we say as the somewhere that the policy be clear that it covers disposals
for profit and for affordable housing or something.
Well, I was just going to say for both, okay, or well, it may not even be housing, for both profit and affordable housing and other uses.
Yeah.
Did you have an order that you wanted that to be? Did you want it to be up the top, or is it?
Well, I would like us to consider like the debt ratio on this and how much we owe and how much we paid for it. I think should trump disposing of property for affordable housing. I don't think that the taxpayers of Bowen Island wanted to pay for land to dispose, to not get any money back for.
Okay. Kirsty, I think that's for council to decide. That sure sounds legislative to me. And they will hear from the public if they make the wrong decision or are headed toward the wrong decision. But you do raise an interesting point. There is a history with regard to these lands. And I don't know if there's if that's relevant to this disposal of them in any way. What do people think?
I can't exactly remember why we bought them, but it wasn't to give away. It was, so long ago.
Well, so the community had some control over the use of the lands that were surplus to Crippen Park at the time, I think was the motivation.
That's what I understood too. Okay.
Michael, sorry, just one consistency thing again in the second one, disposing of land, second point here, council should consider versus will take into account.
Yep. Thanks, Richard. Okay. So, any other comments? And we'll have Sarah read it all again for us, just to see if we miss anything.
Okay, so we have that the Advisory Planning Commission recommends approval of the draft policy process for disposal of municipal lands for affordable housing and provides the following recommendations. That the policy be clear and that it covers disposals for both profit and affordable housing and other uses. When disposing of land, council should consider the current zoning of the parcel to be disposed of and the overall zoning. That the policy includes guidance as to whether to offer the land for lease, sale, or grant. That the policy should avoid the phrase surplus lands, as it implies that there may be land that the municipality does not need. That council requests that applicants demonstrate how their project supports affordable housing or other community goals. That the policy give consideration to amenities and services, including roads, water, sewer, access, parks, and availability of hydro. And that the policy on a disposal gives consideration to the ratio of the municipal debt to the value of the land and any possible impact on property tax.
Okay, and I think I have two comments. I don't know, the last one, is that a recommendation that we ask them to be clear when the community input takes place, or?
Oh, yeah. I wasn't sure whether that was going to become something.
I think so. That was Richard D's idea, right?
Mhm.
So it's like that the policy provide, or the policy be revised to provide clarity when the community input takes place.
Well, all of these may require
yeah,
revisions.
that's
I
true.
just said
Okay.
that the policy
Yeah.
be clear as to how and when community input takes place.
Yeah.
And then I did have a couple of, can you go back to the one about zoning?
This one here.
Yeah. Okay, of the overall zoning of the remaining lands. That's what we're talking about.
I wonder whether rather than the current zoning, it should say the proposed zoning.
Okay, current or proposed?
You want current or proposed?
Yeah, I think so. They may just go with it. And the other one I had was, if you go down to amenities, this is a hot topic, public paths, parks, public paths.
We call them trails to be on.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Anybody have any other editorial comments?
That's quite a few.
Yeah, I hope council doesn't think we're intruding too much, but they gave it to us, right, Alex? Okay. So is there somebody bold enough to move this
Sure.
motion? Betty, second. Richard D. All in favor? Is that unanimous? I think it is. Well, thanks, folks. I think we did some good work here.
Yeah,
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
very good.
Yeah, it's a tough one. How you? I think it was meant to be advantageous to the municipality in its initial formulation of the community lands and so on.
Yeah.
And let's not lose sight of that. Okay. What are we up to? I have to find my agenda here. Oh. There's just the one referral, right?
Yes.
Good. And
Where are you, Daniel?
does
you've
anyone
got
have
me.
any questions about the information item or anything like that, or anything else we should discuss before I entertain a motion to adjourn?
I just think Daniel's wherever he is, it's just beautiful. I'd love to be there. I hope it's your house.
He's on
It
Bowen
is, yes.
Island.
Yeah.
Well, I have a better view too, but anyway, this is
How are
just
the new offices, Daniel?
all right.
Good. Yeah. Everyone should come check out Community Center.
It's next
Yeah,
week.
come
is it?
visit.
The grand opening is on Tuesday, I think,
Yes.
isn't it? Yeah.
Yep. And there's a community barbecue on Sunday.
Mhm. You should register for the community barbecue, just so
Is
I can
that
get an idea of
this
numbers.
coming Sunday or Sunday after it's open?
This coming Sunday.
Okay.
And the ribbon cutting, there's a ribbon cutting and cedar brushing ceremony that's Tuesday the 15th at 11 a.m. So you should all come to that too.
I'm not familiar with the cedar brushing ceremony. Is that what you said?
That's an indigenous
I'm thinking it is.
yeah, we did it at the library to get rid of all the overdue books. No, it's a serious thing, and it's a reasonable acknowledgement of the original inhabitants of this land. I don't mean to joke about it at all. But it can be quite moving, actually, if you've ever seen one. Yeah. Okay. Somebody bold enough. Anyway, you don't have to be particularly courageous to make a motion to adjourn, I don't think, unless anyone has any final comments they want to make. Alex, is there anything you want to add to the proceedings? Okay. How about that?
Sorry, I didn't catch that last bit.
I just wonder if there's anything you wanted to add before we adjourned.
No, I can't think of anything in particular kind of relevant to the Advisory Planning Commission, other than the things that everybody has already said, which is come by and check out the community center. It had the opportunity to be there last Friday, and for the seat selection for the donors who had donated 2,500 or more, and it was really awesome to see the space, and I've seen it through the development, and it's really come together really nicely. So yeah, just another endorsement to check it out.
Absolutely. Good.
Motion to adjourn.
I say this every time. It does not require a seconder, and discussion is not permitted. All in favor?
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody, for really, I think, a very productive meeting.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everyone.
everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Welcome again, Richard.
Thank you.